Yeah, apparently I am audible. So hello, chat. Welcome to the secret preview. You hit the right cheat code, and now you get the behind-the-scenes chatter, but only from one side. I'm ready.
This screen. Oh, there was no transition. That looks great. Bam. Softly into the background. And that was too fast to fade. I'm terrible at this, guys. You have a film degree and and still no good at this. Yeah.
Film versus streaming.
Right.
Different.
They are different. It was funny. I had a conversation recently with some folks at KU about the University of Kansas where I graduated from, about exactly that. And in terms of like curriculum, like how much are you teaching streaming? The real questions.
The answer: are they teaching streaming?
That actually, they are having conversations about new media and that sort of thing. But the element to which they are teaching it, I don't know. Soraya's a little quiet. What can I do about that?
I can eat my microphone.
You can eat your microphone. I could also yell, if that's a thing that we want. Hello. I guess we've still got a minute. We can consider this pre-show for another minute. I don't know. Hi, this is Roll20. I like that. Nolan isn't going to shave until the Las Vegas Golden Knights bring home the Stanley Cup. That's a accurate prediction.
It's very true.
We will probably end up talking about that some more at some point over the course of the next hour. But, okay, so here we are. We're doing a Roll20 roundtable. This slot is typically been held by Roll20 What's Up, and we'll have some updating about what's going on with Roll20 What's Up, because there's some cool things that are happening with that. But this is our semi-regular. I'd say we've been doing this quarterly, where I've been running out and having a conversation about what's going on. Joining me this time is our brand manager, Soraya.
Hey, everybody.
Howdy.
You've probably seen me if you've watched Roll20 What's Up. I've been on a couple of those, and you'll see more of me now as we do more things like this.
Yeah. So I think that's a perfect starting point for what the first thing we're talking about today is, which is just kind of dissemination methods and things that we've tried and things that we are trying. So with the next couple updates coming, we're looking to kind of get back to a sort of dissemination that we had previously, where we did a bigger job of coming to you with information. And what that means is recognizing that not everybody gets on the Roll20 forums. We've got the numbers for that, and it's actually pretty low in terms of our overall user base who uses the forums. And so we need to emphasize Twitter and Facebook and Google Plus and our email lists and all of those things in a way that we have done before, but we've gotten out of a habit of doing enough times within an update cycle to make certain that everybody knows what's going into an update, how to use the tools of an update, and things like that. With that, two changes is, one, we are deprecating for the time being the community corner, the written thing that we were doing on the forums, because that has not been as effective as we want for overall info sharing. And then the other thing that we are doing is that we're going to do a little bit more with What's Up podcast. It's not going to be a podcast anymore. It is only going to be live. Keep your Bill O'Reilly jokes to yourself. But we will be doing that live at the regular time slot, this time slot, and we'll occasionally be taking that over instead of having a generalized conversation about how to make a good villain in a role-playing game and some of the other things that we've talked about there. We'll be coming in and having a really direct conversation about, hey, this is what Roll20 is working on right now, and things like that. So keep your eyes on this space for demos and other things like that. Did I hit everything in that? I think, is that the...
I'm afraid I was switching mics while you were at it, because I'm still quiet, apparently.
You're loud now, though, for me. I wonder if that...
Oh.
No, it's a good loud. It's the same.
Oh, okay. All right, all right.
Are we the same-ish level? Good. Does that work?
People are saying in chat that it's good, so...
Yeah.
As is usual, the very, very fancy mic, inferior to my headset mic.
Technology. Isn't it great?
Technology. I even checked to make sure the mic was turned up all the way, but whatever. Thanks,
right.
Logitech.
So with that said, in terms of Roll20 What's Up is going to be live from here on out, and that we will occasionally be using that space to do other things.
Yes, so please come back this time next week. We'll have a live discussion, and that way we'll also be able to talk to you as you're in chat and answer your questions and take your feedback into account as we are doing Roll20 What's Up.
Yeah, and we'll also be doing, like I said, things like this on a little bit more... we're going to be giving some more advanced notice on, hey, this is where the roundtable is and things like that to help make certain that everybody's got a chance that if you want to listen to us drone on about things, we're here for you. Hooray.
We love to drone for you.
Yeah. So I think there are two things that folks would be pretty excited about. I've spread them out in our agenda. The first thing is I'm going to soft announce what the next update is here, which is pretty cool. So we've been teasing this since Q4 of last year, that we're hard at work on something, and that something was a way to help present player data. That way has a name now. We're calling it the Charactermancer. So not a necromancer, a Charactermancer. And that will be going live in early June on the development server for testing by pro users. One of the, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what it does, but one of the things that is large in this, as I said, it is a means to present player data, is that we are having to have conversations with all the licensing partners whose player data we run around with, in terms of what we can do and what we can't do, and how we can utilize your existing Roll20 purchases within this thing. But the long and the short of it is that we've come up with a way in application to take rule sets and information and edit them in a much more meaningful way using the pieces that are existing in the compendium to have an immediate effect on your character, which is really cool and something that we have wanted to do for literally years. And it's just taken a amount of, I think, having enough licensing partners with information that we're looking to show, and it's here. This has been, it's a long minute coming. It feels like internally, but it is really cool. We've put in a lot of work on it thus far, and I know we will have more work to do on it before it hits dev in early June, and then more work to do on it after it hits dev. And we've got everybody's feedback on how it worked and the things in it. But the Charactermancer is our next update, and next month that's going to be something that there will be ways to interact with if you're a pro user and start fiddling with. A sub announcement within that next update, another thing that we're touching for the first time in a long time, is going to be our dice engine. Nothing wild there. If you're getting bad rolls, you're still getting bad rolls. It's really balanced. Go look at Quantum Roll. I swear to you that the 1s to 20s are distributed.
Nolan.
Yeah.
SHD, I'm going to stop at those letters, but someone in chat wants to know if we have API access planned to the Charactermancer.
So the Charactermancer, that's an excellent question. Right now, the plan on the Charactermancer is that on the very first pass of it, it's going to be very much us in terms of what can and cannot be done with it. There will not be API access, and there will not be sheet maker access yet. And the plan is that we will be opening that up after we feel that we've got the basics of it locked in properly. So that is an excellent question. That the Charactermancer is going to, we're going to take a moment and make certain, because there is a large licensing element to this from several different fronts, and make certain that we've got everything where it needs to be before we go ahead and say, all right, now go do the fan version and go wild. So
this is just going to be laying out the basics, the framework.
Yes. So very, very framework in pass number 1, and it's going to be a little bit before we even open it up to the sheet workers crowd, that they could utilize it on their character sheet and take advantage of the data that exists in the compendium. There are plans to do that. It is road mapped already. It is something that we've discussed, but we are purposefully in the first round of this not giving any of those access. So probably not the answer that you want, but that's the answer.
Yeah, patience for a little while, and then you'll get the answer that you want.
Right. Hang in there. Fast forwarding back to sub announcement, opening up the. We haven't put in any new dice mechanics in a really long time. Like I think it's been probably 3 years since we put in a actual new dice mechanic. We are sliding in a dice mechanic into this update that is matching dice, that it will put a notification for success or failure based on what you've set it to do if 2 dice in a pool match each other. So if you're rolling a bunch of d8s, you're rolling 4 d8s, and 2 of them come down on 2, you can say whether that is a failure or success. That's something that's actually been requested in the past in the suggestions forum, and we have never run around to it. We're running around to it for a top secret reason coming later this year, but it's also something that would be usable across several different indie games. So just a heads up and an oddity to look out for in this update.
And that'll give Crunchy Wizard the advantage. Since they only roll 1s, if they always roll nothing but 1s, they can now, play a game where that benefits
That's
them.
a benefit? That's a success?
Yeah.
It's an interesting success. So I'm going to move along a little bit more chronologically now. The next thing that I want to discuss is the upcoming Waterdeep setup, the Stream of Many Eyes, that Wizard is having. Wizards of the Coast will be having June 1st through the 3rd. We've got several staff going to that, including Soraya, Dean Trivia, and is our Game Master in Residence going to that as well? I forget.
Sorry?
Is Adam?
No.
Adam is not able.
Adam can't make it.
Bummer.
We tried, and Adam tried, but he cannot make it.
But if you want the details on the overall of that, they're listed here, linking in chat. And Wizards will be streaming about that as well. Is that today?
Today.
They've got
Yeah.
So
don't leave us for them.
Don't leave us
better.
Yeah. But
we're more entertaining, and
if you're gonna have 2 streams up, if you're gonna multitask, it'd be a very good stream to have up. But we will be.
Oh, I'm sorry, I misspoke. It is not Trivia who's coming; it's Alex who's coming.
Alex is coming. Okay.
Trivia has corrected me.
Woof. But there we go. So we will have Roll20 staff at that if you happen to be going to that, and you may see them running around in the background.
So if you're going, please say hello.
Please say hello. But that is a cool thing that is coming up. That brings us to some convention stuff, and this is something that folks have been getting antsy about, and I will say, in all honesty, we've been getting a little antsy about internally as well. Roll20CON announcement. Roll20CON is 1 month away from tomorrow.
From today, actually.
Today?
Yeah, June 22, that's day 1.
Oh my gosh. So we've hung off from announcing this because we're still working on hosts and casts and some other things. Not all of that is as nailed down as it could be. So give us a second before we really inundate you with all the regular materials we would have to you. But the weekend that there will be Plus accounts live for everybody will be that weekend of Friday, June 22nd and Saturday, June 23rd. The other announcement that we've got about that is that we are actually partnering this time with Take This as our charity for that. And I think we've also got the theme. Theme, Sun Touch. Do you want to talk about the theme?
So the theme of Sun Touched is what happens when a creature or item meets the sun. So you could be thinking radiant being, or a sunburned adventurer, or a gem sparkling in the light, even a melting ice cream cone. So as long as all the items are united by their contact, bright sunny skies, they fit the Sun Touched theme. So we wanted to do something very summery. And if you've seen the logo that we posted on Twitter, and we'll post again, and you'll see quite a lot of it in the run-up to Roll20CON, our icon and our logo for this year is a sun breaking out over the hills. So very summery theme for Roll20CON this year.
Sweet. But short notice on the summer. It's one of those seasons where it's upon us. A month from today is the live on that, and we will be following up with a lot of information on that as we also prepare you for the Charactermancer. So get ready. You're going to be getting a lot of us in a lot of different places. And
we're hoping to be able to give you a preview of the Charactermancer during Roll20CON.
That should be very easy to do, but at that point already pro users will have had access on the development server, and who knows what all they'll do in terms of previewing that to everybody. Hang on. There's a bunch. So the other thing I wanted to mention, because it is always a part of coming on and live streaming with you all, is the suggestion forum. So we have staff who is now up and running on all things WebGL, which has been the hang up on the bulk of things that are top of the suggestions forum. Right now we are assessing what order we're going to be able to get to the things that are on the suggestions forum. The thing I would say is that in June, in the midst of the Charactermancer update, we will have a new assessment as to what is being worked on the suggestions forum. In other words, you'll be able to see what is actually in development, so you'll have some advance notice on what the next update is after the Charactermancer. So if you are a suggestions forum hawk, you're in for some joy here soon, because we will be circling back around and playing with what's going on there. But we've already had a few meetings assessing what we think we can get to and how fast, and now we're doing a little bit of testing on what we can get to and how fast. So to quote Samuel L. Jackson, hang on to your butts. I think that was about it that we had on any sorts of announcements, other than to say, hey, these are for sale now.
Yes. Get your pink dice.
In terms of advanced planning in the world, it took a really long time to get these things. An absurdly long time to get these, but they are now here. They're huge. They're head-sized. They're sturdier than you would think, but also fresh and light. They are.
I was really pleasant. Sorry, I was really pleasantly surprised when I first picked up one of these. They nailed it. It doesn't roll evenly.
Right.
Like, you should not substitute your regular D20 for this.
Not random number generation approved, but
no.
But
it is
the
fun
right
to
hex
toss.
color in terms of we had to actually get the die the DYE for the DICE specially done to get them in the right pink, but they went ahead and did that for us. They're super cool. They're a lot of fun, and if you have not gotten one of those, consider doing that, because holy cow, it's cool. And throwing that as a link in chat as well. Please.
I already dropped it, but we can drop it.
I mean, you can many times.
Drop all the dice.
Drop all the dice. But yeah, these things are super cool. I highly recommended. They came out really, really nice. Soft Stuff Creations is the folks who did this for us, and they do a whole bunch of webcomics plushies and the like, and they were a joy to work with. And you know, the proof is always in the pudding in terms of how did the final product come out, and it came out really cool. So if you need, for some reason, a large pink fuzzy die, go get them.
You know you need it. You need it in your life. I did. So now are we doing Q&A?
Now we're doing Q&A. Now we stand around. I knocked over Chance. No. Now we've got
we have one question queued up from Elwarius. This was from back when we were discussing the new dice mechanic.
Okay.
They were asking, will 3D fudge dice ever be a thing?
So maybe, but that actually fits much more squarely in terms of what will happen once we get some more WebGL things moving. That fits really into graphical updates. And that is actually a thing that we have discussed the last time that we sat down and did a suggestions forum scan. I would say, in terms of will they ever be a thing, I would say almost assuredly yes. Can I tell you when they will be a thing? Like I said, we're having some of those meetings and trying to figure out it. I would say overall, it will be some matrix of how much can we accomplish versus what things are the priorities to, like, we have a suggestions forum with voting for a reason, so that when we're specifically going and looking for some of these things, we can hit the things that people care about, so long as they're, chewable within a single setting. So I cannot promise that particular dice request will happen there, and again, that's unrelated to the dice engine. Is the random number generation and kind of the formulas that you would put down math-wise in chat. The rendering of 3D dice is very much a WebGL thing, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that we want to do with that. Dice skins. Oh my gosh, it would be so cool with dice skins. But we'll see how quickly we can get to that. So yeah.
Nolan, would you mind reprising? By the way, folks, throw us your questions in chat. We're going to be catching up to those, and we'd love to have your questions. And yeah, Crunchy Wizard, I was actually going to ask for just that. Nolan, could you do a repeat of what the Charactermancer is? Because a couple of folks arrived late and they missed it.
So the Charactermancer is, we've been teasing since beginning of Q4 that we were working on a new way to present player data specifically for... So if there's any player-related licensed goods out there that you could think of from a licensing partner that you're like, why hasn't Roll20 done this? Why have you not released these things yet? That was our decision, because we wanted to wait until we had a better way to present and interact with the sort of data. We now have that way up and running and are getting some approvals on what all we can use and what all we can do with the data for the things that you would be able to purchase that would fit into this realm. But long and short of it is, you're going to be able to make and edit characters in Roll20 in a way that's much more intuitive and uses rule sets that we have license to use. And there will be, we're launching with at least 2 rule sets, possibly more depending on what gets done. There are phases of this project. Some of the rule sets that we are launching with, we're only doing specific parts of the rule set. Like, there's a lot. If think of it this way, it's like we've created a sorting funnel, and into that sorting funnel, we're hoping to have a method to take every single type of character that we have license access to and go, all right, now you've purchased the appropriate thing on Roll20 and you're dumping that data in, and it sorts itself into the character you want it to be. It was a lot of work figuring out what the various components of a character are across different rule systems and how we could make the back end plumbing for that make any sort of sense. But we did it. Wing It, one of our developers, has been the head of this project for a while and has put in some pretty serious work to get this up and running, and has done some pretty serious testing with our module production folks. And this is going to be a big change overall. Honestly, this is it's one of those things, like, it's tough to describe until all the pieces are sitting there in front of you and we've got every single approval from the licensing partners. But this is a big enough deal that we specifically waited to do some books that you would have liked us to adapt by now, because we wanted to do this thing and wanted to get it right. And it's almost here. You get to start playing with it if you're a pro user the first week in June. So
we're pretty excited for you to dig in.
Look forward to that. But that is, yeah.
Okay, and Kuroyu said, speaking of, first, for the folks who are asking, how do I ask questions, just go ahead and type them in Twitch chat and we'll see them. For Kuroyu, who asks, speaking of dice, will it ever be possible for 3D dice to respond to roll template conditional displays?
Something we want to do. Good question. But that is a conversation that has happened in terms of what order we can do that in and what it will look like down the road. But there's a whole bunch of things that we would like to do there, and some of it is it's like the 3D rendering is something that's disconnected from the randomization, and so it's like it has to like spit out, like we randomize and then it tries to spit out the output visually that we came up to, and there are some gaps in that we need to do some work on. It's a bizarre thing, but we use it too, and so this is a very honest reaction in Roll20 land. If you've thought of it, I'd say there's a 98% chance that somebody on staff already wants to get to it, and that is seriously, like, it's very high probability that somewhere amongst the 15 of us, 16 of us, oh my gosh, there's so many of us now, that is sitting there going, I really want to do that if we could just figure out when, where, and how. So hang on.
Fitting it all in.
Yeah.
But we'll keep you updated as best we can. Noob Codes asked a question that I'm actually going to answer because Trivia answered it in chat. Thank you, Trivia. Is there a plan for localization for character sheets, such as localization meaning multi-language? And as Trivia points out, the localization is done by the community. Our translators are volunteers, and they make a lot of different languages on the sheets. So I just wanted to vocalize that one. But we do have another question already queued up for you, Nolan. Is there a Roll20 office, or do you guys work all online?
So we do work all online. We are a completely remote team, and part of the plan on that has been that it keeps us honest. Like, we feel like if we're now big enough that we could work in the same place, but it's like, if we did that, how much would we use Roll20? That said, I do think somewhere within the next 18 months there will be a physical Las Vegas office that has part of staff in it. The reason being that there is something, I guess to say it bluntly, people are already using Roll20 for in-person gaming, and we would like to do some different exploration as for what we could do as an in-person tool. And so there will be a small percentage of staff that meets up at an office to work specifically on those problems. and I think that's somewhere around 18 months away. Don't quote me on that forever, but it is on a roadmap somewhere, and we do at this point have 3 staff members in town, with a very strong likely that there is a 4th on the way. So Vegas, baby. That is something we talked about sharing today, but we did not go through and make an edit as to what we did or didn't want to share. We did just have a big staff retreat in the middle of April in Vegas. Lots of fun, lots of pictures. We're not sharing all of those with you, though, because lots of time in bathing suits.
What happens in Vegas?
Some of us have dad bods. But it was a lot of fun, and it was a good... I think sometimes folks forget that we're people working on this product, and it was a really nice chance for all of us to be people and to hang out and have some strategic talk and some what are the goals? Are we meeting the goals? What are the things that we suck at right now? How do we fix that? But mostly eat good stuff, watch shows, and play a lot of Overcooked.
I am quite bossy at Overcooked, but I do love that game.
It's a really interesting management game in terms of seeing how different people approach team problem solving with a Nintendo Switch and screaming. But yeah.
It doesn't need to be screaming if you just plan ahead.
There still seemed to be a lot of screaming, but...
Far less when we planned ahead.
Okay.
There was much angrier screaming when everyone just went in and was like, well, let's figure it out.
There was also a member of the team who I will not out at this juncture who was like, I'm just doing it all alone. And that is not the optimal for a team. But yeah, it was it was a really fun time, and something that I was super glad that we got the opportunity to take basically 4 days and hang out and be people. So, yeah, it was cool.
And then going back to our next question. Oh shoot, I forgot to grab this person's OUKAG asks, or OUKAG, I don't know. Will there ever be a time when GMs or game creators can share compendiums with their players? For example, Volos provides character options. Would the Charactermancer take this into account?
So remember when I said with the Charactermancer that there were some things that we were trying to get approval on with licensing partners? I don't have an answer for you on all of that, but specifically those sorts of considerations are exactly what we are trying to figure out right now. What compendium data goes to who, why, under what circumstances, and what are the various partners who sell portions of information, what ways can we share that among players. First, we had to have the technology so that we could actually share that data in a meaningful way no matter what, and now we have to choose some of the data for missioning. And so that is the... I don't have an answer for you, but some very nice people will have answers very, very soon as we start to roll that out and get approvals from all of those folks. Mm-hmm. But very heads-up question. Yeah. Exactly the question.
Exactly what we're working on.
We are yelling at each other right now. Hey, will they allow this? I don't know. Ask them. Okay. And
we are in the yelling phase of the Overcooked. Yeah. Roll20 as a company metaphor, but we will soon be in the organized.
And that is something too. I think one of the things on that is we recognize that because there are a great many licensing partners impacted by this. It is not just major licensing partners. We want to get a solution here that works in a bunch of different ways that a bunch of different people will be satisfied with down the road as we make this decision. So we're working on it, but that is something that is, we know that that's an issue too. And right now, the solution of I can pull out a compendium journal page to share with people, but they can't actually browse the compendium themselves is not the optimal way to do that. And I think the good news is our licensing partners understand that. It's just a question of how far can we get the metaphor of, well, I bought a book and I want to share it around the table to go. So.
Mm-hmm. All right, the next question is pretty long, but Nolan, it touches on one of your favorite topics. What does Roll20 have for helping people play board games? Are there any hidden macro repositories to allow people to play board games with distant friends that can't gather around a home table to play? Any kind of tool, not necessarily a rule set. Because, this is from Shadzar, and Shadzar has noticed the lack of this around the internet and wants to know what we do.
There are areas on our wiki that go into what some of the board game elements are. I'd have to sit down and run through what those look like. I guess historically speaking, and I've made this point a few times publicly, the first game I ever played on Roll20 was 4th edition Dungeons & Dragons. The second game I ever played was Settlers of Catan. And that's since day one. I mean, the reason that there is a hex tool, the reason that there's card deck tools, the reason that some of the reasons that tokens work in the way that they do is specifically to make certain that you can play board games. I think the bigger challenge that we've had is convincing board games to let us license them. And there are a few that exist on the marketplace, but overall there's kind of a miscommunication. So board game manufacturers think that they want a branded board game application. So it's like, I own Game X, and I think that what I want is on the iTunes store for there to be a Game X application that everybody who plays my game has. And there are two reasons that is not true, and I explain this to board game developers several times a year. One, nobody plays games the same way. And what I mean by that is if you've ever played Monopoly with two different households, you know everybody has different rules on the banker.
If you ever played Monopoly with two different households, you also have two sets of no longer your friends.
Right. But the reasons that they're not your friends are different across those two sets. And that's a very important thing, that you need a virtual tabletop. You don't want an application that just forces the rules on people. That's why we play board games as opposed to video games, so we can have that weird fudge factor to these things. The other thing that board game manufacturers have not fully adopted to is that if you have a branded application, what you have to do is you have to get an audience for that. What I mean by that is you've got to have, let's say a couple thousand people on at any given time who are available to play the game with you, have downloaded the application, can meet up in some function. Holy cow, that's hard to do. And we have a giant community that's already here. And so the selling point that we give to board game producers is like, all right, so we have 5 people who were planning to get together to play Pathfinder tonight, and their game master got sick and can't come, and the other 4 people are sitting there and they're looking for something to do. If they could pull Settlers of Catan off the shelf, they might just do that instead. Can we make it so that... And so, yeah, there's still something of a disconnect that I think needs to be solved from a licensing angle to help some of that and to make it a better realization. But I am aware of a great many people who play board games in Roll20, but they've also spent 10 hours ahead of their first session making certain that they have every card in their personal set scanned and ready, and which is a boatload of work and the sort of thing that we would prefer to do. We would love to do the hours of work ahead of that and have it be I spent $5 and it's here element, or I spent $20 and it's here element. We just don't have the licensing having happened there yet. Let us get the right licensing partner there, and I think the chips will start to fall.
Yeah, the Aaron in chat mentions that they've played a lot of board games on Roll20, and for them it is a matter of scanning cards and boards and creating the game, which I'm glad that you do that. But we would love to do that for you in the future. Right,
with official assets. And then the other thing is that the board game creators are, getting money for the people who are specifically playing it digitally, and that's how it should work. But they all think that they want branded applications. You talk to them, and it's like, no, I want my download version in the App Store. And it's like, that's not actually what you want. Nobody will be there. But alas. So what?
Walt's Humani, wants to know if the end result is going to be that we have to pay extra for each rule set we use. Speaking about the board games.
I mean, in the same way that you would currently, yeah, and you would. for either board games or tabletop games, because creator Y got their money doesn't mean that creator Z got their money. Those are things that are separated. I will say at one point we were looking at doing like generalized non-trademarked board games, checkers, chess, backgammon, that sort of stuff, and the reaction to that was really meh. Like people were like, I don't really need you to make, like, if I really want to play chess, I'll just do it myself. And so we didn't pursue that. But that is a conversation that we've had a couple times, that we might just take the most basic board games and put them out there ourselves. And we've just not followed through on it, because when we went and straw polls, anyone interested in this, everybody was like, no, we're interested in 3D dice and all the things that apply a little bit more. So
yeah, it's a little complicated, but yeah, it's definitely something that we've got our eyes on, is doing more of that. And we'll have news when we have news. Speaking of updates, though, Tetsuo wants to know if there are any plans to introduce a file manager outside of the game for managing images and such.
So we really want to circle back around to what the art library can and can't do right now, because we know it's a mess. I think particularly it's a pain point for us, because so many of the things that are in your art library are things that you purchased from the marketplace. And I'll also say, on the marketplace end, there are things that we want to change about the search functions of that. I was watching Soraya have a conversation with somebody on staff yesterday about, I tried to search for this thing on the Roll20 marketplace, and it was more convoluted than it should have been. I need there to be a fix to that. We know that we have some pain points there, and we are talking about ways to circle around to them. I don't know if it's one of those things that it depends on how we skin the problem as to whether or not the marketplace version of that and the art library version of that happen simultaneously. But we know that sucks right now, and we know that there needs to be a better way to organize the things that you have ownership on Roll20. Your library's got to be easier to access and easier to sort. So our bad, we know. When we're working on it, we're not sure yet.
And then, so if we're looking at it, but right now we don't have news about it. However, Japa Grand wants to know if we're planning improvements to the UI for journal and character bio sections within the tabletop itself, because right now it's hard to see notes as the GM with both showing at the same time. There's
a bunch of things that we'd like to do that are that sort of UI related. I think one of the things first is the stuff with the Charactermancer, that it's going to give us an ability to take care of some of the things where right now you would just be able to rely on the journal for sharing compendium data. But we know I'm aware of 3 different lists on staff, at least, of if I got my hands on the UI, here's what I would do to fix X, Y, and Z. As for when that happens, I've just told you Charactermancer is first, and then a big WebGL update is second. If there are other things that happen amidst that, you'll be quick to know, but none of that is nailed down to a date yet.
Keith Curtis wants to know, do we have any plans for a Gen Con get-together like we had last year?
So we, is that our Keith? Yeah, we're going to be at Gen Con. It will not be, so since everybody just came out here for a giant retreat, we are not, the full Roll20 staff is not descending upon Gen Con, but there will be a handful of us, myself included. We have some announcements going into Gen Con, but we are waiting on other folks to make those announcements. But there is a cool thing has happened in regards to Gen Con that I cannot talk about yet. But it's unique and should make for a very interesting Roll20 Gen Con. So hang on and hopefully see you there. I will definitely be there. Soraya, you are part of the Gen Con crew as well, correct?
Dang right I am.
Okay. And I should say, as I have question marks about who's going where, Soraya is the one currently making the decisions on who is going where.
I am, and yet I misspoke earlier when I told you that Triv was going to Waterdeep when it's Alex going to Waterdeep.
But I am not just the absent-minded professor. Someone has been delegated to do this, and so we'll leave that to her too.
There are plans,
right? But we've got a bunch of conventions that we're hitting this year. It's actually the most aggressive convention schedule we've done. And I'm excited to see what happens. And it's not just us going to some conventions. Sometimes we're tapping folks that you've seen on some of our live streams and stuff like that to come and join us on panels and to represent us in different ways. And it's really cool to be able to work with some of our best and brightest community members to run around and talk about what it is that Roll20 is doing. So a very cool convention slate ahead of us. Just got to make it to convention season, which right now feels like, woof. We're doing a lot.
Yeah.
Doing a lot.
And there's another convention question, which I'll jump right on. Both Crimson Yeti and Game Denied wanted to know what the design of the Roll20 Con 2018 t-shirt will be, and wait and see, my friends.
I also see somebody inquiring about Origins. We will have some folks at Origins. I'll also say there is a panel at Origins that is not announced as a Roll20 official panel, that is a Roll20 official panel in a way that I referenced Secret Project earlier. Good luck, find your own adventure. But we are working on a lot right now. And Roll20 philosophy has always been to under-promise and over-deliver. We've been really quiet in 2018 thus far for a reason, and it's about to be a very noisy summer. So, yeah.
Yeah. Get ready. What was it? Hold on to your butts.
Hold on to your butts. I mean, there's a lot of reason to hold on to our butts, but I don't remember what specifically had me holding on to a butt.
A Unified Nerd Network wants to know, will we be able to modify or add entries to the compendium?
Something we would like to do. The biggest problem is right now what I call the Hamler problem. If you've ever heard that if you assembled however many monkeys in a room, eventually one of them would type out Hamlet. The follow-up question I always have to that is, how soon would they type out Hamler? The play identical to Hamlet, except that they replaced every T with an R. The problem with custom compendiums is that inevitably what somebody is going to do is they're going to take an existing compendium, so Pathfinder, Dungeons and Dragons. I guess it wouldn't necessarily be a problem with Dungeon World, because that is I think there's a Creative Commons license on that. But take one of those and change Fireball into Fire Bill and be like, haha, it's got the same stats and you can figure it out. And we haven't figured out the way to tap dance around that issue and stop the Hamler problem, Fire Bill, from happening. And so that has been a large part of the holdup on it. But we want custom compendiums. I mean, I think that if we could figure out a way that we feel comfortable with kind of getting out of the way and letting you have the inevitable house rules that all of us have, the inevitable house spells and elements, that is definitely something that comes up in conversation a lot for us. I think it's fair to say, though, that our first priority was, hey, can we do player data in a different way, period? And so we solved that problem first.
Then New Codes is back with another question. Are we planning to do an Android app for phones? Because currently it's only for tablet.
So we have not yet planned an Android or iPhone phone applications. Right now there's just the Android tablet and iPad applications, and both of those could use a revisit. That there are, particularly for older devices, some rendering issues there which are just unacceptable, and that's something that we want to circle back around to. Earlier when I was discussing an eventual plan to have a focus on in-person gaming, boy, that would relate to that, but it's not specifically dated yet. But a dice rolling application on phones is something that we've discussed for a couple of years. It's something that we're interested in, but we don't think it is the number one priority because the majority of Roll20 users are still using at a laptop or desktop or something like that. So we hear you, we're thinking about it too, but it's not priority number one.
Yeah. From my perspective, I love bringing my laptop around and putting Roll20 on my laptop, and my laptop has it folds over and becomes a pseudo tablet. Works pretty well that way. So if you're playing it a lot in person, new codes, that might be something to consider, is bringing a laptop with you. It's not the same, but it's helpful. And we're gonna circle back to the Charactermancer for a bit. Nolan, you ready?
Yeah.
All right. Elwarius wants to know, are there any plans to bring the basic D&D stuff, player's handbook, races, classes, spells, character options, and make it sheet compatible?
Boy, that's a really good question. You'll have to wait and see. But we're having lots of conversations with licensing partners, and we held off specifically on releasing some things until we had a better way to present player data, and that better way is called the Charactermancer, and it's coming.
Dun dun dun.
Connect all dots. But that's my tap dance around that question, and you come to your own conclusions. Yeah.
It was an enjoyable dance.
Thanks.
Waltz Humati specified or gave some more detail on their question from earlier. They want to know, if they run Call of Cthulhu with the existing sheets and then Roll20 gets a license for Call of Cthulhu, will they have to pay to get to play Call of Cthulhu?
Only if we are adding data from a book or something like that. So this isn't necessarily sheet elements. This is us taking some element of gameplay and putting it in a place where you're able to pull in specific statistics which go beyond just showing you a character sheet and having it do in the same way that right now the Roll20 5th edition sheet, the official 5e SRD sheet, you can drag and drop elements from the compendium into it. This is additional functionality to that. There are existing SRD, open gaming license, system reference document elements that are free, that we have hosted for free, that you can use for free. But if it's something that a licensing partner expects to make money off of because they're selling it in a book form, we will also be putting it in a place where there's a purchase to have the use of that data. To use a character sheet, no. But in many cases, to use the Charactermancer, it'll depend on the specific rules and how the licensing partner is monetizing those rules.
Mm-hmm. There's been a whole conversation in chat relating to the custom compendiums. I think Trivia's been pretty on it, but to summarize one of the legal issues that Nolan was referencing, if you copy-paste non-OGL rules into your game and our servers are hosting it, and especially if you can copy-paste and share between accounts, that's where we run into difficulty.
And we have seen some folks try to do things there with the API that we've specifically gone after some repos of that and are probably due to do another sweep of that. If any of you out there are using that sort of, hey, I've got everything for a game hosted in a off-site repo that my API goes and grabs, we're probably going to do another circle through and put out some notices on that. We do that from time to time, and that's sort of area where not only are you hurting a licensing partner and subjecting us to nasty legal stuff that we don't want to get into. The other thing is, like, if we want this hobby to last, we need people to get paid. One of the oddest things in terms of seeing Roll20 grow up and become the 6-year-old toddler that it is, has been from the very beginning. We were told role-playing is a niche hobby. There's not actual money in it. You can only work on this on nights and weekends, and now we've got 16 full-time staff members. There is money here, and it's the sort of thing that it's important to people put those 16 staff members do a whole hell of a lot of work, and they deserve to make living wages for it. And there are literally at this point 3 million people who have jumped in and utilized their work and played with it. So having methods to monetize, I don't feel bad about it. I think that that's an important thing to do, and I'm pretty proud of the ways the stands that we have taken in terms of saying, no, this is a hobby that you don't just give away, that there is value to that. And the more that we see other creators, people who are making rule sets, people who are making maps and tokens and stuff like that, be able to get paid, the more it means that this hobby has a long and shiny future ahead of it. So I'll step off my soapbox.
Long and shiny and pink.
Yeah.
There was an extremely important question that was raised by the chat, and several people have this same question. Nolan, they hear your dog, and they see your dog.
Ritsuko! Ritsuko! Maybe.
Yeah, she doesn't feel like it.
Hey! No, she can.
Oh, there we go.
Come on. Oh, yeah, I know you don't want to come up, but I'm going to make you come up. Ugh. You're not posing well.
Long dog.
Long dog.
Long dog has arrived.
Long dog has arrived. Hey, sweetheart. Dog. Ugh.
There you go. You guys get
Heavy
the dog.
dog. Fuzzy dog. Dog.
I have one more question here from Kuryu 1984. If there was someone out there who had another question that I missed, please put it in the chat, or if you have another one that you come across. Otherwise, this is my last question, so just giving you a heads up. From Kuryu, speaking of marketplace assets, would it ever be possible to get API access to purchase marketplace assets?
We've had that conversation several times, and it's something we want to do, yes. As for when and how that's going to happen, I think that happens around the same time. There was the earlier question about organizing the art library and making that a better experience. And boy, does that make sense that once we've organized it, made it a better experience to access it, the API could then access it and do something with it, right? So, yes, someday, question mark. There's a lot. Go to the suggestions forum, see how many hundreds of questions there, or hundreds of inquiries there are there, of which, again, I'll say 98% of them, I promise you that somebody on staff is just sitting there going, I want this. Let me get to it. And some of the, I said this on streams a lot last year, that some of the issue is that we were a little slow about hiring staff at the end of 2016, beginning of 2017. I am correcting that problem. We are definitely onboarding a bunch of new people and getting their capability to be able to help us up to standards. So there's a lot of things in the pipeline like right now. Hang in there. But we do have a very large, a substantial update in an area that I think is really going to blow some people away, which you're going to start being able to interact with next month. Mm-hmm. So, hooray. It's not just saying something is coming soon. I could specifically say there's a Charactermancer. It's a big new piece, similar in size and scope to what the compendium is, and you're going to be able to do a lot with it. Mm-hmm. And first week of June, pro users are going to be able to start playing with it and giving us feedback on what we got right in it and what still needs work. So hang in there.
Yeah. And Crunchy Wizard got in another question, which is, any plans for adding additional fonts to Roll20 for the VTT and character sheets?
So this is a really interesting problem because it comes up in a bunch of different ways. That our overall design suite on what Roll20 looks like visually does not actually connect to a bunch of web-safe fonts. And so that is an ongoing conversation where we would love to do a bunch more with fonts in general. We've also been lucky that we've had some licensing partners who make font choices that we have been able to do web-safe versions of and do some things with. But I can say with no reservations that there are several members of staff who hate everything text editing about Roll20, and we are working on passes of that. And as a matter of some of that may even drop fairly soon. I'd have to circle back and see where that is on the. That's not a big shiny update in and of itself, but I know that someone on staff is actively playing with text editing. I don't know if adding new fonts is a part of that, but there are a host of problems we have with text editing right now, and some new stuff is coming there. But
Thorson72 asks if we have an ETA on text editor enhancements or upgrades across the platform.
Exactly what I just talked about. We hate that enough that somebody went and grabbed it and has started working on it. I don't know how soon they intend to have that to the live servers, but I know that we've started to play with that. So soon, like actually soon, as long as nothing else breaks in front of that person. So
hopefully not. And we got some more questions. We scared him out of hiding.
We got
Keith
6 minutes. Go.
Keith Curtis wants to know, will Charactermancer have value and testable features that do not require purchased content?
Yeah, in so much that there are existing SRDs and existing Creative Commons games that have compendium elements. Absolutely. Some games, some of the most popular games, no. It's not going to do anything because what sits there is stuff that is sold. But at the same time, some of the most popular games have large SRDs that are very publicly available and that we will be plugging in pieces of as we go. I was having a conversation about a game that we do some SRD stuff for the other day, and I didn't even realize just how deep our compendium could go on that with available SRD content that we're working on bettering and make more sense. But the answer is depends on what you're playing, and I can't get more specific than that until some of the answers from our licensing partners are settled. But suffice it to say, if it's something that is a system reference document that's been made available under an open gaming license agreement, or if it's something that's available under a Creative Commons that allows remixing, editing, and things like that, yeah, we're probably going to do some cool stuff there. But if it's something that a licensing partner is still trying to monetize very actively, no, you're not just going to get that for free. Sorry.
OUCAG has another question about purchasing and books. They do recognize that this is most likely dependent on the licensor, but say that they find it difficult to essentially buy the book twice since they also enjoy the physical books. Is there any chance that us changing that in the future, since they would gladly pay for the digital version if they could get the physical as well?
I think that we've yet to find a solution there that truly works, because it's like the physical books, particularly when they're being sold by brick and mortar hobby stores, they've got a need to make a profit. And then on our end, we have a team of 5 people that are full, that this is the main thing that they work on, in addition to a bunch of extra staff who come and have an element in creating. We have found thus far, when we adapt a book for Roll20, it takes us over an hour per page of work to get everything in and set up into the interface properly. And we've also yet to find the licensing partner that's not entirely. There are very few licensing partners who are stepping up and kind of doing that on their own as part of their creative process. It would make it easier if somebody, as they were planning the print version of the products, did a few things to get stuff ready for us. There could be some time saved in that, but as it stands right now, we're essentially working off of things like InDesign files as we create content like this, and that it takes a boatload of human resources to get that done. And so, no.
Trivia's team needed apparently about 500 hours to convert Tomb of Annihilation.
That's wild, and that's sort of thing. Because of that, and we're adding things as well. Things like everything from dynamic lighting to, and this is something that continuously surprises me, is that the majority of companies doing this, they don't separate out their maps to hide things like traps and stuff like that, and so that are being put on the print versions. And so we go and we do image editing and do things like that to get it better and ready for the digital space. So I think that we're in a position right now that we have to consider them 2 separate products. You're welcome to go ask your local brick and mortar store if they would like to give up the money that they are making on the books But in the meantime, my answer on behalf of digital is I'm not trying to take their money, and you're definitely not taking ours. High five, and move from there.
Yeah.
But no, I get it. Like the hobby can be expensive. Make certain that your friends chip in for pizza. And that's...
Make certain that your friends buy you all the pizza if you bought
Right.
the module. That should be the trade. You buy the module, they buy the pizza for the next couple of weeks.
That is, that's how it works IRL. And one of these days we will get into pizza trade over Roll20, but that's years off. Years,
Oh gosh!
years away.
Order your pizza direct from Roll20.
That's a long-standing Roll20 opinion. One of these days we're gonna figure it out.
Thorson, I know we're getting right up on 4 p.m., but Thorson got this question in with plenty of time, so I want to make sure we get to it. They ask if we are thinking about adding an option to purchase additional image storage, or barring that, the ability to manage a library, for example, sort images by size and delete them from outside the platform.
The sort by size is definitely something that we've talked about when we go in and do some sort of art library restructuring. There's a whole bunch of things that we like. You need to be able to bring in marketplace tags. You need to be able to bring in sizing. You need to do a bunch of things there that you currently cannot do, and we know are pain points that need to be fixed. As for if we're going to offer additional beyond what we're doing with Plus and Pro, probably not, unless we figure out some other things just data-wise with how we're storing and sharing that data back to you, because there are some complications there, but we get that size is storage is always a problem. Right now, the only saving grace in that is that if you buy something on the marketplace, you have the size for that. That's kind of our bare minimum devil's deal, but that's not included in your storage elements. But there are other things that we would like to do to make it easier to just manage all of that. So we hear you.
Yeah. Nolan, are we doing a hard cut, or can you do one more question?
I could do a couple more questions. Hi, Tanya. We need to jam, Tanya. It's been a minute, and I think that there's a secret thing that we're supposed to talk about at some point. And I'm just going to say that on stream because I don't care. Hi, everybody. Woo!
Nolan likes doing this tap dance around secrets.
I mean, I think it's one of those things, like, I think one of the things that is difficult about being the under-promise, over-deliver company is that there's a lot of time where somebody's asking you a perfectly reasonable question that you would love to give an answer to, but you know that if you give the answer publicly, we live in an age where there's a certain no-fun crowd out there who will be like, I saw you say this, and so why isn't it here now? And while 99% of people, literally 99% of people, will be completely reasonable about, oh yeah, I understand that you had to, switch a priority or do something else, or this came up. That 1% of person out there who's like, I saw you say that you were going to do this within the next month, and it's not here, and now I want you, and I'm going to, spend your emotional resources talking to me. So I've gotten to a point where, it's the secrets game. Because that's one, more sustainable, and two, it is kind of fun when the secrets finally come to pass. And this is a whole summer full of fun secrets that I'm going to get to show a lot of cool things off. So hang on.
Tanya, if you're talking about Waterdeep next weekend, yes, you will see me, Dean, and Alex. Oh, which trivia is on top of thing there, good. Question was from Keith Curtis, who asks, if we are looking at true archiving of characters, i.e. out of the loading space.
We are looking at a bunch of things with how data loads into Roll20 and the storage thereof. Some of this came up when we had that awful little outage at the beginning of April. It had us ask a few questions in terms of, because we were able, if folks recall, we were able to get some things up on a read-only basis. And as awful as the situation was, it gave us a really different look at how we are doing data and some ideas for some things that we would do differently. I don't have anything resembling an ETA or even a plan on that, but there were several meetings that came out of that outage which were like, okay, this sucked and we got out of it, but beyond that, I never thought about how we could do this with our existing data. And so that's,
always those silver linings.
Right, and it very truly something that was just exactly what you're talking about, Keith. Is the sort of thing that we went, we could do some things there that are different, and I think too that makes a lot of sense as we get into this Charactermancer stuff. What new things are we going to do with the character vault, and what new things are we going to do with overall what players can access out of game master purchases? All questions that we are actively mushing around and trying to make into a cool sculptural format that everyone can see. So,
the Aaron suggests that we should start giving all of our secrets code names, like Project Lightning Badger.
or like Project Gasball.
That sounds like a good code
That
name.
sounds like a really good code name.
Can't
But
imagine what that might
I
be
can't
for.
imagine what that's for either. But I've said that in public for the first time. Oh my gosh, that's scary. There's a bunch of stuff coming, guys, and we honestly, I will say it. So I now have been in charge of Roll20 just over a year since Richard and Riley pulled out of the day-to-day, and I sat down after that and came up with a plan. And it's been about a year getting that plan to come, and like now all the chickens are coming home to roost, and it's like, chickens. This is an incredibly exciting summer, so hang in there.
I haven't seen anyone get more excited than trivia about chickens until now.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
No problem.
And CJ, please clip.
No, don't do that. Project Gasball, what could that be?
What could it
I
possibly
know.
be? Imagine.
Look around Origins. Anyway, I'll be back and doing one of these sometime in the not so distant future. But before that, be back here, same bad time, same bad channel for What's Up, Roll20 What's Up next week, and you'll have the regular cast there, but you'll have them live. Don't inundate them with feature requests. Let them talk about the things that they're here to talk about.
Inundate us with like tabletop questions,
Yeah.
with your game questions,
Right.
not your
Not-
not your VTT
Not
questions.
your virtual tabletop requests. They'll just be
Yes.
sad and won't be able to answer all of those. So
Jeff will try,
yeah.
and then we'll mute him.
No, stop! Don't do that, Jeff. I'm begging for your sanity and mine. But yeah, cool. Well, thanks for hanging
right.
out with us, and until next time.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone. Bye.